Claudia Romano was the envy of Milan.
Heiress to the Romano banking dynasty, she had grown up in a palace of glass chandeliers, gilded halls, and endless wealth. The city whispered her name in admiration, yet when she stared into the mirror, she saw only a girl trapped in a cage of expectations.
Her father, Giacomo Romano, was a man of steel.
To him, Claudia wasn't a daughter, she was an heir, a pawn to strengthen the family empire. Every move she made was watched, every word weighed, every friend chosen for her.
And then came Luca Moretti. He wasn't supposed to matter. Just another employee in a long line of staff who came and went.
A chauffeur hired to drive her through the cobbled streets of Milan, nothing more. But from the moment Claudia saw him standing by the sleek black Mercedes, something inside her shifted.
Luca was not like the others.
His uniform was immaculate, but it was the way he carried himself that caught her attention, broad-shouldered, calm, with the kind of presence that demanded respect without ever asking for it. When she stepped out of the mansion, her emerald eyes met his.
"Miss Romano," he greeted, dipping his head slightly.
"Claudia," she replied, sharper than she intended.
No one called her Claudia.
Not even her so-called friends.
But somehow, it mattered that he did.
That first drive was quiet.
Too quiet. Claudia sat in the back seat, watching him through the mirror.
His eyes stayed on the road, steady and unflinching. His hands gripped the wheel with a confidence that unsettled her.
Finally, she broke the silence. "Do you always look this serious, Mr. Moretti?"
His lips curved, just barely. "I take the road seriously, Miss Claudia."
It wasn't the words.
It was the way he said her name.
Not as a duty. Not as a command.
But as if she were human, not an heiress, not a pawn, just Claudia.
And that single word was enough to plant a dangerous seed in her heart.
From that moment on, Claudia Romano knew her life was about to change.
The Romano estate glimmered that evening with gold and crystal.
Guests from all over Europe filled the grand ballroom, men in tailored tuxedos, women draped in diamonds.
It wasn't just another party, it was a performance, staged by Giacomo Romano himself. And Claudia was the star.
She descended the marble staircase in a gown that shimmered like liquid silver, her every step rehearsed for perfection. Smiles greeted her, glasses raised in her honor, but her heart beat with dread.
Because she knew what was coming.
On the raised platform at the center of the hall, her father cleared his throat, his booming voice echoing across the chandeliers.
"Tonight, I make an announcement that secures the future of our legacy." The crowd hushed. Claudia's fingers tightened on the folds of her dress. "Claudia Romano," her father continued, "will be engaged to Alessandro De Luca."
Applause erupted like fireworks.
Cameras flashed. Champagne was poured. But Claudia felt nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Alessandro, son of another powerful banking dynasty, stepped forward.
He was handsome, yes. Suave, polished, every inch the gentleman.
But as he slipped the glittering diamond ring onto her finger, Claudia's chest hollowed with emptiness.
This wasn't love. This was strategy.
From the back of the room, a pair of eyes caught hers.
Luca! He stood among the staff, silent, unreadable. But the look in his eyes told her what no one else dared say aloud: "You don't belong to him." Later that night, away from the noise of the ballroom, Claudia stormed into the gardens, the engagement ring burning her hand like a shackle. She heard footsteps behind her. And then his voice, calm, low, but steady. "Claudia." She turned, fire in her emerald eyes. "Don't say it. Don't congratulate me. Don't." "I wasn't going to," Luca interrupted. His gaze lingered on her trembling hand, the diamond flashing in the moonlight. "But I will say this, sometimes the richest cages look the most beautiful." Her breath caught. No one had ever spoken to her that way. No one had ever dared. For the first time in her life, Claudia Romano felt seen. And for the first time, she realized her heart was no longer her own. Claudia couldn't breathe inside the estate anymore. The laughter, the congratulations, the whispers about her perfect engagement, all of it suffocated her.
So, she slipped out through the servants' entrance, her heels clutched in her hand. The night air of Milan was cool against her flushed cheeks. She needed to run. She needed to escape. But she wasn't alone. A sleek black car rolled forward, headlights slicing the darkness. Behind the wheel, Luca. His jaw was set, his eyes fixed on her. He didn't ask what she was doing out there barefoot. He didn't lecture her about the risks. He just opened the passenger door. "Get in." Claudia hesitated, torn between the world she knew and the one calling her heart. And then, without another thought, she slid into the seat. The engine purred to life, and they drove. Past the glittering lights of Milan, past the crowds and the noise, until the city melted into winding country roads. For the first time in years, Claudia felt free. Wind tangled through her hair as Luca pressed the accelerator, the night swallowing them whole. She glanced at him. His hands gripped the wheel with quiet control, but his profile, sharp, strong, utterly unshaken, stirred something inside her she couldn't suppress. Finally, she broke the silence. "Why are you doing this? Why risk your job, for me?" His eyes flicked to hers, just for a second. "Because sometimes, the person you're meant to protect isn't just in the back seat. Sometimes they're right beside you." Her chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not her father. Not Alessandro. No one. They stopped at the edge of Lake Como, the water glistening like liquid glass under the moon. Claudia stepped out, the soft earth cool beneath her bare feet. And there, by the lake, she whispered the words she never thought she'd say aloud. "I don't want this engagement. I don't want Alessandro. I don't want my father's plan." She turned to Luca, her voice trembling. "What I want, is this. Right now. With you." For a heartbeat, silence stretched between them. And then, Luca stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, his voice low. "Claudia, if we cross this line, there's no going back." Her answer was simple. "Then let's never go back." And under the starlit sky, their worlds collided for the very first time. The morning after Lake Como, Claudia woke to a world that felt different. The lake, the stars, Luca's words, all of it still burned in her chest like fire. But reality has sharp teeth. By the time she returned to the estate, Alessandro was waiting. His eyes narrowed, his voice dripping with suspicion. "Where were you last night, Claudia? Don't tell me you were alone." Her throat tightened, but she forced a smile. "I couldn't sleep. I went for some air." Alessandro didn't believe her. His fingers traced the edge of her wrist, a silent threat cloaked in charm. "You should be careful. People are always watching." He was right. Because the whispers had already begun. The staff exchanged glances as Claudia passed. Some swore they saw her slipping into the car after midnight. Others claimed Luca's vehicle had been spotted by the lakeside. Rumors spread like wildfire in old estates. And by breakfast, even her father's sharp eyes lingered on her too long. Luca, meanwhile, felt the weight of the risk pressing down on him. Driving through the courtyard, he could feel Alessandro's gaze burn into his back. Every movement, every glance toward Claudia, was a game of Russian roulette. Yet he couldn't stop himself. When their eyes met across the grand dining hall, a silent electricity surged between them, dangerous, undeniable. Later that day, as Luca polished the car in the garage, Claudia slipped in quietly. Her voice trembled with urgency. "They're talking. They know something. What if my father finds out? What if Alessandro?" He cut her off, stepping closer. "Claudia, listen to me. You don't have to marry him. You don't have to live the life they've chosen for you." Her eyes welled with tears. "And then what? Run away with you? Leave everything behind?" His answer came without hesitation. "Yes." Her breath caught. It sounded impossible, reckless, insane. Yet for the first time, she wanted it more than anything. But as their moment thickened with forbidden desire, a voice sliced through the garage.
Interesting conversation. They froze.
Alessandro leaned against the doorway, his smile cold, his eyes sharp as knives. I wonder what the family would say if they knew the heiress had such questionable tastes in company.
The tension in the room snapped like glass. In that instant, Claudia and Luca realized something terrifying. Their secret wasn't just whispered anymore. It had been caught.
Alessandro's smirk lingered in the shadows of the garage long after he walked away.
Claudia's heart raced, her fingers trembling as Luca gently pulled her behind the car, whispering, "Don't panic. He doesn't have proof." But Luca was wrong. Alessandro didn't need proof. Men like him thrived on suspicion, on planting seeds of fear until they grew into chains. That evening, a grand dinner was arranged at Villa Bellagio.
The chandeliers glowed like captured stars, and the long table stretched endlessly, filled with Italy's wealthiest aristocrats. Claudia sat beside her father, her gown glittering in pale silver, while Alessandro played the perfect gentleman at her side. Yet beneath the table, Alessandro's hand tightened around her wrist, possessive, bruising. His lips curved as he whispered, low enough for only her to hear. "Your little adventures. They end tonight." Claudia's blood ran cold. Across the hall, Luca stood at attention, dressed in his chauffeur's black uniform, pouring wine into crystal glasses. His expression calm, his movements precise, but his eyes betrayed the storm brewing inside him. He saw Alessandro's grip. He saw Claudia's struggle to hide her trembling. And rage burned through him like wildfire. But Alessandro was already 3 steps ahead. When the meal ended, he raised his glass, commanding silence. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to make an announcement." Claudia stiffened. Her fork clattered against the porcelain plate. Her father looked up with pride, expecting words of engagement, wealth, legacy. But Alessandro's gaze flicked toward Luca before he spoke. "Soon, Claudia and I will be married. A union not only of love, but of loyalty and honor. And with loyalty, comes sacrifice." The words hung heavy, loaded with meaning. His smirk was pointed, dagger-sharp. It wasn't just a toast. It was a warning. The room erupted in applause, but Claudia's stomach twisted. She understood what Alessandro was saying, choose me, or watch him burn. Later, when the guests dispersed and the villa quieted, Luca found Claudia standing by the fountain in the moonlight, her silver gown glowing like a ghost. "Claudia," he whispered, "he's tightening the noose. We don't have much time." Tears slipped down her cheeks as she shook her head. "If my father suspects, Luca, he'll ruin you. And Alessandro, he'll kill you." Luca's jaw tightened, his voice low but fierce. "Then let him try." She clutched his hand desperately, torn between 2 worlds, the cage of power and the fire of love. But as they stood there, a sharp click echoed through the silence. They turned. A man stepped out of the shadows, holding a camera. Alessandro's hired investigator. One flash. One stolen image. The heiress and the chauffeur, caught hand in hand beneath the stars. And just like that, the trap was complete. The next morning, Claudia awoke to silence that felt heavier than any storm. Servants moved quietly through the villa, their eyes downcast, whispers swirling like smoke. Something had shifted. Something dangerous. When she descended the marble staircase, her father's voice thundered from the study. "Claudia! Get in here!" Her blood ran cold. She stepped inside to find her father seated behind his oak desk, his expression carved from stone. Beside him stood Alessandro, arms folded, that venomous smirk plastered across his face. And on the desk, lay the photograph. Her hand slipped against the doorframe. There it was, clear as day, her hand clasped with Luca's, moonlight catching their faces, their love undeniable. Her father's voice cracked like a whip. "Explain this." Claudia's throat went dry. She tried to speak, but words tangled in her chest. Alessandro stepped forward smoothly, his voice dripping false sympathy. "It seems Claudia has confused loyalty with temptation. But don't worry, sir. I'll handle it." "Handle it," her father snapped.
She's my daughter, Alessandro.
And this disgrace, he slammed the photo against the desk.
With a servant? A chauffeur?
Alessandro leaned closer, his whisper meant only for Claudia. Run to him now, and I'll bury him. Stay with me, and maybe, just maybe, he lives.
Her stomach turned. This wasn't love, it was blackmail. A gilded prison. But Luca, where was he? She found out soon enough.
Later that evening, Claudia saw him dragged to the stables by two of Alessandro's men. His shirt torn, his lip bloodied, but his eyes, those unbreakable eyes, still burned with defiance. Leave him alone, she cried, rushing forward, but Alessandro blocked her path. This is your fault, Claudia.
Do you see what happens when you break the rules of your world? Luca spat blood onto the ground, glaring at Alessandro.
You can chain me, you can beat me, but you'll never own her heart.
The words cracked through the night like thunder.
Claudia's breath caught, her love was out in the open now, impossible to hide.
Alessandro's face darkened.
He stepped close to Luca, his voice low and cold.
Then I'll crush you both. He ordered the men to throw Luca into the servants' quarters under guard.
Claudia reached out desperately, but Alessandro grabbed her arm, yanking her back.
You belong to me, he hissed.
Not anymore, she whispered.
And for the first time, Alessandro's smirk faltered.
But the danger was real.
Their secret was no longer secret. Their love was no longer safe.
And as the sun set behind the villa, Claudia realized the truth. The war for her freedom had just begun. The night was heavy, the villa cloaked in silence, but inside Claudia's chest, her heart thundered like a war drum.
Luca was locked away in the servants' quarters, bruised, bleeding, but unbroken. And she'd trapped in her gilded bedroom, knew Alessandro was watching every move.
She stood at her window, eyes fixed on the shadowed stables below. That's where they kept him. She could almost feel his presence in the dark, his quiet strength pulling at her. Then a whisper.
Claudia.
She froze. Turning, she saw a figure slip through her balcony door. Matteo, Luca's friend among the staff, his face pale with fear.
He told me to come. Luca, he won't survive another day like this.
Alessandro means to send him away tomorrow, to a place he won't return from.
Claudia's hands trembled.
Where?
Matteo shook his head. Doesn't matter. If you want him alive, you have to move tonight.
Her pulse raced.
Tonight.
Meanwhile, in the stables, Luca pressed his back to the wooden wall, chains biting his wrists. Every breath burned, but his mind was sharp. He wasn't waiting to be rescued, he was planning. When the guard outside the door yawned and leaned against his chair, Luca whispered to himself.
Claudia. I'll find a way. At that very moment, the lock clicked.
The door creaked open. And there she was, Claudia, her silk gown covered by Matteo's hooded cloak, her eyes fierce with determination. Luca, she whispered, rushing to him. He stared at her like she was a dream.
Claudia, what are you doing here?
What I should have done long ago, she breathed, fumbling with the chains.
Saving you.
The guard stirred, but Matteo slipped behind him with a wooden beam, knocking him unconscious. The chain snapped free, and Luca stumbled forward, weak but alive. Claudia caught him, her arms trembling as she held him.
For a moment, everything froze. Their eyes locked.
No walls, no rules, no chains, just them.
Claudia, he whispered, voice hoarse. You shouldn't risk this.
She shook her head, tears gleaming.
Love is the risk.
They slipped into the night, every shadow their ally, every sound a threat. Through the gardens, past the marble fountains, until the iron gates loomed ahead.
But just as Luca pushed them open, a voice thundered from behind. Going somewhere? Alessandro.
Flanked by guards, his smirk sharper than any blade.
Torches lit the night, the flame reflecting in his eyes.
Claudia stepped in front of Luca, her chin high, her voice steady despite her racing heart.
I won't let you control me anymore. Alessandro laughed coldly. You think this is about love? No, Claudia. This is about power. And tonight, you've lost it all." But before his men could strike, Luca grabbed Claudia's hand. Together, they ran not back, not forward, but into the woods that lined the estate, vanishing into the darkness like fugitives. Branches clawed at their skin, roots threatened their steps, but they didn't stop. They couldn't. Behind them, Alessandro's furious roar echoed into the night. "Hunt them down. Bring them back to me dead or alive." And so began the chase. The heiress and the chauffeur, two souls bound by love running for their lives against a world determined to tear them apart. The forest swallowed them whole. Branches snapped beneath their feet, their lungs burned, but Claudia and Luca didn't dare stop. Alessandro's men were out there, torches cutting through the night like angry stars. By the time they stumbled upon the crumbling chapel, hidden deep within the hills, their bodies were shaking. Its wooden doors sagged, ivy crawling across the stone walls, but to them it was sanctuary. Luca pushed the door open, wincing from his wounds. Inside, moonlight streamed through shattered stained glass, painting the broken pews in colors of red and blue. Dust floated in the air like ghosts of forgotten prayers. Claudia helped him sit on the altar steps, her hands trembling as she brushed the blood from his face. "Stay with me, Luca, please," she whispered. He caught her wrist gently, his eyes locking on hers. "I told you before, Claudia. I can survive anything except losing you." Her heart twisted. In that moment, she saw not a chauffeur, not a man beneath her family's station, but someone who had risked everything for her. Hours passed. Outside, the forest grew quiet. But inside the chapel, silence was heavy with unspoken words. Claudia sat beside him, her cloak wrapped around his shoulders. The crackle of a dying candle filled the air. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "Regret what?" "Running with me. Leaving everything behind." He chuckled weakly, wincing at the pain. "Claudia, the only thing I regret is not telling you sooner. I loved you from the moment you looked at me, not like a servant, but like a man." Her breath hitched. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and before she could speak, Luca leaned forward, pressing his lips to hers. It was slow, desperate, and filled with every word they had never dared to say. For the first time, the world outside didn't matter. In that ruined chapel, under the broken glass sky, they belonged to each other. But peace is never safe. From the woods came the distant bark of dogs, closer, closer. The flicker of torches returned, shadows crawling across the hills. Claudia pulled back, panic flooding her face. "They've found us." Luca stood, despite the pain tearing through his body. His jaw clenched, his eyes burning with resolve. "Then we fight. Or we die trying." The doors of the chapel rattled. Men's voices shouted. Alessandro's fury was at their doorstep. Claudia gripped Luca's hand. "If this is the end, I'll face it with you." The wooden doors creaked, cracking under force. And as the last candle went out, the lovers stood together in the darkness, waiting for the storm to break. The chapel doors burst open. Alessandro's men stormed in, torches blazing, swords glinting in the moonlight. Claudia gasped, clinging to Luca's arm. They were surrounded. But what shattered her wasn't the soldiers, it was the man who stepped in behind them. Henrik. The loyal butler who had raised her since childhood. The man who once carried her books to school. The one she thought would die before betraying her. His voice was cold, stripped of warmth. "Claudia, forgive me. I did this to save you." Her eyes widened in horror. "Save me? By handing me over to my prison?" Henrik's jaw tightened, but his gaze never met hers. Better a gilded cage than a grave. Luca's fury ignited. "You sold her out for him," he spat, his voice thick with rage. Henrik's silence was answer enough. Alessandro stepped forward, smug, his boots echoing across the chapel floor. "Did you really think love could protect you, Claudia? That a chauffeur could be your savior?" Claudia's chest heaved, anger tearing through her fear. "I would rather die in these ruins with him than live one day in your palace."
The words struck Alessandro, but instead of pain, he laughed a low, venomous sound. "Then you will both suffer." The soldiers seized Luca, slamming him against the broken altar. Claudia screamed, struggling against their grip. Henrik stood still, his face carved from stone, refusing to look at her. For the first time, she felt truly abandoned. Luca, blood dripping from his lip, shouted through the chaos.
"Claudia! Don't give up on us! Not now!" Her heart cracked. But Alessandro's order silenced everything. "Take him to the castle dungeon." As for her, he turned, his eyes narrowing with cruel desire. "She will remember who she belongs to." As the soldiers dragged Luca away, Claudia's sobs echoed through the chapel. Her gaze burned into Henrik's face, searching for even a flicker of the man she once loved like family. "Henrik, how could you?" she whispered. His lips trembled, but he said nothing. And with that silence, Claudia knew, the betrayal wasn't just of her freedom, it was of her very soul. The night swallowed their cries. One was taken in chains. The other, back into Alessandro's grasp. And for the first time, their love seemed shattered beyond repair. The night was heavy over Lake Como. In the cold stone dungeons of Alessandro's castle, Luca's wrists bled from chains. His body was broken, but his spirit was not. Every heartbeat carried only one name, Claudia. Above him, in the golden halls of her prison, Claudia wore a gown of silk, her face painted with forced beauty. But her eyes, once radiant, were hollow. She had stopped eating. Stopped speaking. Stopped being. Until the night she heard whispers. Whispers of a loyal guard who had seen Luca defy torture without breaking. Whispers of a storm brewing among the staff who despised Alessandro's cruelty. Something inside Claudia reawakened. She would not die a prisoner. She would fight for him, for them, for love. At dawn, the castle erupted. Servants who had once bowed in silence now lit torches. Guards who had been bought with coin turned their swords on Alessandro's men. Henrik, the butler who had betrayed her, appeared in her chamber, eyes swollen with regret. "Claudia," he whispered, dropping to his knees. "I was wrong. I thought I was protecting you. But I only destroyed you. Let me help, let me make this right." For a moment, Claudia wanted to curse him. But time was short. "Then prove it," she hissed. "Take me to Luca." The dungeons shook with chaos. Henrik fought like a man possessed, cutting down Alessandro's guards. Claudia tore open the cell, falling to her knees beside Luca. "Claudia," he rasped, barely able to lift his head. She cupped his face, her tears falling on his bruises. "I'm here. I'll never leave you. Not again." Luca, despite the agony, smiled faintly. "I knew you'd come." The lovers, together once more, ascended into fire and steel. The battle in the courtyard raged, torches, blades, and cries piercing the morning air. And then Alessandro appeared, mounted on his black stallion, rage twisting his face. "Enough," he roared, his sword drawn. "If I cannot have her, and no one will." He charged. Luca pushed Claudia behind him, seizing a fallen blade. Their steel clashed, sparks flying. Alessandro was stronger, fueled by fury. Luca was battered, half-broken. But he fought with the power of something Alessandro had never known, love that refused to die. In a final clash, Luca drove Alessandro backward, striking true. The tyrant fell, his reign ending in blood and silence. The courtyard stilled. Servants dropped their weapons, bowing their heads. For the first time, the castle was free. Claudia rushed into Luca's arms. They held each other as if the world might vanish. "You saved me," she whispered. "No," Luca replied, his voice trembling. "You saved me." Henrik stood at a distance, tears in his eyes, watching the heiress he had once raised walk hand in hand with the man she loved. Weeks later, by the waters of Lake Como, Claudia and Luca married in a quiet ceremony. No crowns, no palaces, no riches, just a bond forged in fire, stronger than betrayal, stronger than fate. And when Claudia looked at him, she finally understood. She had not lost her title. She had not lost her freedom. She had not lost her heart. She had found everything. In him.